I went into college with the intentions of dropping out. I probably started like 50 different businesses just over the past 10 years.
With so much coming at you and being an introvert, does that overwhelm you?
The whole summer semester, I ended up having nothing. Like I was just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And that's when I realized, hey, I don't need that much stuff. People don't think that, but most YouTubers that I meet are introverts.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because
Nate, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I figured we'd start off with the firewood business.
All right, let's hit it. What do you want to know?
What was the firewood business like? I think you started that with your brother, right?
Yeah, so my brother's 2 years older than me. And when he was 16, got his driver's license at 16 and a half or whatever. As soon as he got his driver's license, got the truck, and that's when we started the firewood business. So I was 14. Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of manual labor, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
We're going to talk about YouTube, I'm sure, a bunch,
Yeah.
but how did those formative experiences impact your eventual career onto YouTube?
Yeah, there were so many businesses that I tried, and a lot of them failed. I mean, I probably started like 50 different businesses just over the past 10 years.
50?
Yeah, but like, most of them I would do for a month. It's like I would start like growing wheatgrass, and then I'd try to sell that, and then I'd do okay with it, and then, like just focus on something else a month later, and then I was selling mealworms and like all kinds of other random business ventures. And so, but the firewood one lasted a decent bit. I mean, from, I was like 14 until sometime in college, when I had to phase it out because got injured and stuff. But yeah.
And then there was another one you did with your grandpa, right? Mowing lawns?
Oh yeah, so my grandpa was a landscaper, right? He still does it too, and he's 83. And so he's been doing this for like, over half a century now. But he's been a landscaper for his entire life, and so I learned a lot from him about that. He didn't do like the lawn care; he was more of like the design, almost like landscape architect in a way. But he worked for himself, self-employed. And so then I picked up lawn care, and I just started doing that with my brother as well. Kind of bundled that in with the firewood business as we're, taking trees away from someone's property. Hey, your grass is looking a little long there, and then just, get them on as customers.
And then you hurt your back doing that, right?
Yeah. And that was sometime in high school. And that's when I made that shift of like, wow, like manual labor work. I mean, you can make money, especially as a teenager, but that's when I realized I don't want to do that full time, because I couldn't imagine if I was hurting my back as a teenager, when I'm 30 or 40 or 50, relying on my body to make money. I was definitely like, that was a big wake up call for me personally.
Okay. So you go to college, you start the YouTube channel in different classrooms of Penn State, and you start slow. It's like first month, I think you got 64 subscribers. Second month, you had 210. 6 months in, you're 800 subscribers deep. And then somewhere around a year, 2 years, 5,300, 55,000.
Yep.
Like early days. Like take me back to that place.
It's probably, I could have looked at it in the way of like, wow, I've been at this for half a year and I only have whatever you said, like 800 subscribers. I could have looked at it that way and been kind of like, just like disinterested from it. But I just set this mindset where it was like, instead of thinking it's so small of subscribers, because like people will laugh if you're like, I have 800 subscribers. People don't take it seriously. But I viewed it like, wow, this is an auditorium, a large auditorium of people who have subscribed to me and want to hear what I have to say. And so that's how I viewed it. And so my videos, when I was first putting them out, I was just watching them all myself. Like I would go into the computer lab and just turn on 30 computers and just have all the videos playing. But, even if I was getting like 50 or 100 views, and I would like comments would roll in from all over the world, I was like, wow, this is a classroom of people. This is an auditorium of people. So that's how I viewed it. It's just like the perspective there. And it was really, really motivating.
And when you were in that place, what was the primary driver at that point?
I think it was because I went into college with the intentions of dropping out. And I kind of went to college as like a safety net. You get a lot of pressure from like guidance counselor and everything, because my grades were decent in school. So people are like, Nate, you're like, don't do landscaping. You need to go to college. Don't waste your potential is what they said. But so I said, okay, fine. I'll go to college. I did it. But from day one, I was like, all right, my plan is to drop out, but I need to scale something to the point where I'm at least making like, like $10,000 a month or something, or at least like a viable business that I can scale. And then once it scales far enough, then I can drop out of college. So that was the plan.
Why was your plan to drop out? I feel like that's a very uncommon path for people.
I think so, but it was just like, I really, the thing I value most, like, so for example, I don't need to be a billionaire or something crazy. I don't have like insane ambitions. Really, my primary goal is just, I want freedom. You know, I want to be able to do whatever I want at any time. And some people think that's lazy. I actually agree. It is kind of laziness. But I like it. Like I like the laziness. So, yeah, so having that freedom is what I wanted. And I had this fear of, if I graduate college and then I have a job lined up and then you just kind of get roped into it. And there's nothing wrong with working jobs. I mean, like I don't want to say anything against that. But it's just not what I wanted to do. So I had to start early and start planning now so that I didn't get trapped into a job.
Yeah. And freedom is kind of what I think of you. It's interesting that that was your primary motive, because when I see you going across the country, living in a van, starting a minimalist life, like that is freedom to me, and that makes sense. So it's interesting that your first word or the thing that you were chasing was freedom.
Yeah. So I've always been a bookworm, right? And so I think the most impactful book of my life was Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. And I read that so early on. I mean, I don't know. I was just a weird kid, right? So I read that in maybe like 2011, 2012, sometime around then. And it was just like my Bible, and that's why I got inspired to focus on freedom and working smarter instead of working necessarily harder, or at least working smarter before you work harder.
What were some examples of you working smarter in the early days of your YouTube channel, or maybe even today?
In the early days of my YouTube channel, actually, let me go back to like the firewood business and the lawn care business. I would, at first I was doing that myself, right? And then once I hurt my back and stuff, I realized, hey, let me just pay some of my friends to do this, right? And then eventually I was making money and they were going out and doing the work, and I was like, hey, this is pretty nice. So that was when I first realized, because I could have just put my head down to the grindstone and just mowed more lawns, split more firewood, but it wouldn't really be scalable. So I really learned about scalability. And that's actually why I also started on YouTube, because I learned just the leverage of the internet. Instead of me going and shaking hands and talking and networking with people individually, I can do this just broad and just go to millions of people all at the same time, kind of like what we're doing with this podcast right here, right?
Yeah, millions of people.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day. But, take me through what got you started living in a van and traveling to the great wilderness of Colorado. Like what got you started on that path?
So I like both extremes. So someone sent me like exactly what it's called. I forget what the words are for it, but my ideal living situation is have a place in the city and then have a place out in the middle of nowhere, disconnected from the world, and going in between those two. So you have two extremes. I'm not a big fan of suburbs, right? And so so I spent a lot of time, in New York or in LA or in San Francisco, in cities, right? And then I need to have sort of a circuit breaker where I can just go for a few weeks or for a month and just live in my truck and have that total freedom. And I think that's when my best ideas come also, when I'm just like have that total freedom and I can do a lot of meditation and just think and read and really just get back down to earth. So I think it's healthy for me, at least.
Yeah, it is. How'd you get into meditation?
It was almost by accident in a way. It's kind of, so everybody meditates in different ways, right? But for me, it was just kind of like a gradual, by accident. I would sort of just sit on a bench somewhere and just sit there and just live. And it's hard to explain to some people because they don't they just there's no way I could do that. My mind's racing too fast or something. But that's kind of how it started. And I didn't even realize I was meditating for years. And then I was like, wow, I think this is actually meditation, because this is what I would do. And I'd just be so content and just live. So, yeah.
Natural.
Yeah.
There was no influence telling you.
I watched some videos and read some stuff, I'm sure, but it was, probably read some blog articles and stuff to learn some different techniques, but yeah.
So what is meditation to you?
So it's kind of, so different routes, right? And I feel like you're more of a meditation expert, right?
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but.
And I feel like the way that I do it is not scientific whatsoever. But for me, it's really just trying to get to a point where you don't really have to, like, you're not actively trying not to think about stuff. Because I think sometimes people think that they're like, oh, you have to just, like it's so hard to even put into words. I don't know if I can do it.
Fair enough. It just being, right? Like
Yeah.
The ability to just be present and enjoy whatever it is that comes.
And without overthinking it. I think people overthink meditation and they try too much, like they read too much and they try to like get it down to a science where I just kind of do it. I don't know. This is a terrible explanation.
It's okay. No, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And are there any ideas that you can attribute directly to that you've done that you attribute to meditation?
I mean, I think it makes me a lot happier. It really brings me down to earth. Helps with anxiety, especially like if there's just a lot going on and I can just disconnect and slow down and really take a step back. Also really helps with when like strong emotions, like if I'm angry, or I don't really get angry that much, but if I'm upset or something, just going into a meditative state can really help me to make rational decisions rather than emotional decisions. Yeah.
How would you recommend somebody get started who's not really too sure?
I've heard that there's some good apps, right? There's one called
Headspace,
Calm.
Yep.
So I don't think I've ever really used those, but I have friends who use them and they seem to like them, helps them get started.
And how similar is it when you're walking in the middle of nature, in the middle of nowhere, to a meditative state? Is that almost like the same thing for you?
Yeah. I think so. I really like being alone. And it's just, I'm a big introvert, so I get energy from being alone. And maybe that's weird to some people. Like I also love talking to people and interacting, but I thoroughly enjoy being alone. So I get most from that.
Yeah, I really enjoy being alone as well. But it's interesting. You just said, and you've said it a couple of times, like, oh, that might seem weird. Like, where does that come from? That critical voice in your head of trying to figure out how other people might judge you.
Of determining what people think is weird.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of data from my YouTube followers. So you kind of learn, how the majority of people think. At least the ones who watch my content. So sometimes I'm like, you're weird or something else. So you just kind of learn it over time. Yeah. Not that it's necessarily bad. I mean, I embrace it. I think everybody's weird in their own way.
Totally. And that's why Joe Rogan says not to look at the comment section.
Oh yeah.
Because when you get to a certain point, you're living in a hive mind almost of people's opinions and perspectives.
Yeah, it can be pretty intimidating and scary. Like for me, I never really had bad viewers or like comments. I would say 99 out of 100 comments are really nice. Because a lot of my content's informational, so people just appreciate the information. It's not like entertainment or something. But yeah, I have friends who they get destroyed in comments and it really messes with their heads, they get depressed. So yeah, not reading comments, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
It's not natural for human beings to be exposed to that level of just criticism and praise. And, one take you have on this is like, I don't really want to be famous. And getting to know you for however long we've been talking is like, I can understand that because it doesn't seem like that's something you're interested in. Like,
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's not something I ever set out to be famous. And luckily, I'm not. Yeah. But I like privacy, and it's weird enough when I'm like walking down the street somewhere and it's like it's nice, it's fun when people say, hey, how's it going, I've seen you on Danny's podcast or something. It's fun, but there's definitely some downsides that people don't think about. Like people don't take anonymity, I can't say the word.
Yeah.
But they kind of take that for granted, right? And they don't realize that there's value to being anonymous. So I prefer to be at like, there's a saying, sort of conference famous, but not past that. So you show up to an event and people know you, you don't have to introduce yourself as much, but outside of that, nobody really knows you. I think that's the perfect level.
Yeah. David Perel has got this great idea called niche famous or niche fame, where some people know you and you're respected in your field, but when you walk down the street, you don't usually get stopped, but you've started to get stopped a lot. I remember listening to a podcast where in 2019, 2020, early 2020, people are screaming your name. One guy's shouting out to you, and it's a little troubling.
Yeah, someone when I was in New Orleans in 2021, and I usually don't open photos that people send me on Instagram. It's bad. Just don't do that. But I was feeling risky that day, so I was like, "Oh, what's this?" Like someone sent me a photo on Instagram, so I opened it up, and it was a picture of me sitting on a bench, and I had no idea who it was, and it was weird. Yeah,
That happened on a train too with you.
yeah, in Philadelphia, and I think most people mean well. It's not, I don't want to sound paranoid or something. I mean, most people are friendly and everything, but I wouldn't want to be famous to the extent of like a movie star. If you're Mark Wahlberg or something, or and you can't even walk down the street, I feel like that would suck, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a certain personality or a certain disposition to accept it. Like, okay, I'm gonna get that amount of leverage, and because of it, I'm gonna accept the consequences that come from it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting how I remember reading a Tim Ferriss blog post of like 20 reasons not to get famous, and he talked about like harassment and just like death threats. Have you had to deal with any of that sort of stuff at your current stage or level?
I haven't. Yeah, people are generally friendly. It's just I haven't, because I think the content that I make, the things I do, are generally not controversial. If I was talking about politics, we can get into politics if you want. We can talk. Yeah. So the topics I talk about are pretty PG and very broad. So it's hard to have someone have like a big vendetta against me.
Yeah. Well, you said at one point that you're going to hit 1 million subscribers and then phase out the channel. That didn't happen. What?
I kind of did though.
Okay.
So I make a video a month now.
Gotcha.
And that's just sort of because I feel bad not making them, because there's part of me that feels like I'm letting it go to waste because, I've spent so much time building the subscriber base and putting out these videos and building a community and just kind of letting it go. There's part of me that doesn't want to do that. But at the same time, I feel like I've said everything I needed to say on YouTube. So that's why I've been sort of slowly phasing it out. Now I'm making a video a month. Probably 2 years from now, I'll be making a video every 6 months, maybe. And then eventually probably just slowly disappear.
Yeah, no, it's cool because you talked about the idea that everybody has a finite career or relevancy. I don't know. I mean, some people have it longer than others, but it's really true. I never really considered that prior to you saying it.
Yeah, so it's kind of I kind of equate influencers to NFL players, right, or professional sports players, and especially if it's a personal brand and it's your name, there's not really any equity appreciation there. Like you're not building up equity and then selling it and bringing on investors, not normally. And so in that case, you're kind of similar to just a pro athlete, and you can do it for. I mean, some people can do it for 20 years, like Tom Brady, right, and do really well over that time period. But most are going to do it for a few years and then slowly fizzle out. You can make a lot of money in that time period, and I think a lot will, if you can make a few $1 million like an NFL player for a few years, then it doesn't really matter what you do for the rest of your life as long as you make smart investments. So, but there's nothing worse. I always feel bad for influencers who they don't innovate, they don't diversify, and slowly their reach, like whatever, if they're a YouTuber or TikTok or whatever, slowly it starts dying. And they keep putting out more and more and more and more content. It keeps going down and down and down until they have to go get a job, 6-7 years down the road.
Yeah, that's sad. Yeah. But I mean, that's the nature of what can people do to not let that be their fate.
I would say just don't get used to don't get in too much of a routine. If you're if you have a YouTube channel and you're making videos and it's working, sure, definitely double down on that. But make sure you spend at least 10% of your time and assets on something else, basically setting up like R&D projects or like R&D like businesses and funneling some money into those different ventures so that if one thing goes down, like if your YouTube channel gets taken down or you get canceled or something else happens and your income on that space goes to zero, at least you have something that you can at least pay your rent with and then focus on scaling that out, like instead of starting from scratch if something goes wrong.
Were there any particular R&D projects you did that were impactful?
Yeah. So I did a couple. So started some channels with my brother, and kind of just like tried to automate those as much as possible. And then I also made investments into some blogs and some different businesses. And so those just pay basically quarterly dividends. And it gives me a lot of like it really helps with relieving stress because if all of my income from YouTube from my personal brand goes to zero, I'm still okay. And then buying a lot of dividend stocks also definitely helps. So yeah, focusing on income a lot.
It's interesting the idea of looking at yourself as a creator like an art like a company and having R&D and having revenue and having
Yeah,
these and that comes from your finance background or investing background.
I think so. Yeah. And just so I've always said this that for anybody, whether you're trying to be an influencer or if you're just trying to, get your money up and just get better with personal finance, running yourself like a business, I think is really, really going to be just useful. So even if you're trying to budget, right, you have debt and you're looking at your expenses and everything. Treat yourself like a business. Read some accounting books. Learn about cash flows. Learn about income statements, balance sheets. You learn about that. I mean, it's that's like the health of a business is all in the financials. So, yeah.
Speaking of books and reading, I'm curious if you mentioned the 4 Hour Work Week as an impactful book on your journey. Are there any other that come to mind that you would gift to 18-year-old version of Nate?
18-year-old Nate, you know, so I think there's this investing book that I think is really great. It's The Intelligent Investor. You've probably read it, right? It's like a very, very common book. But it really helps get the mindset right on just assets and investing instead of gambling, right? We've seen so much gambling in the markets in the past couple of years. It's insane. So that helped me to make sure that I was making smart decisions and mitigating risk and just setting myself up for like a nice stable future. So yeah, The Intelligent Investor, great book.
Nice. And when you think of gambling on the markets and you see, I remember you tweeting you want a short Bored Ape at $200,000 floor price.
Hmm.
You've been in the investing world now for a long time and you've seen the cycles of it. Do you look at something like NFT craze that happened in the past year and be like, what is happening? I don't understand it. How do you react to the NFT market going up and down? And
So usually when I don't like something, I go in head first into research on it because I don't want to be the person who is, oh, I don't like that. So therefore you just like write it off and you don't look into it at all. So I've tried so much to get behind NFTs. And I understand the concepts of them. I like Gary Vee with this conference and his tickets. I understand that. And I think there's some good stuff in that. But there's so much of this that's just, there's no utility in it with the JPEGs and the art and stuff. I've been to so many NFT conferences. I was at Art Basel down in Miami and just hanging with so many NFT people. And I'm going to tell you, I have one NFT. It's like a baby ape or something. It didn't go anywhere. I just bought it because one of my friends told me to buy it. It was, like $1,000 or something. But yeah, that's the only NFT I have. So I'm not really bullish on them. And I think we're going to look back on this moment in 2022 and we're going to say, wow, how do we not realize that was a massive bubble? I mean, that is when a picture of a rock is selling for over $1 million.
yeah.
I mean, that's what happened in the late 90s, right? Same thing, pet rocks, Beanie Babies. There's always going to be bubbles. And the sad thing, though, is that people don't realize it. And they'll be in denial for a long time. It's just going to keep dying slowly because interest rates are not going down anytime soon. So it's just going to keep dying slowly. And people are just going to keep holding and holding and holding down to the bottom.
Yeah. Is it possible that the technology is correct, but our look and investment strategy in it similar to stocks in the internet and
Totally.
early 2000s?
Totally. I was actually going to make a video in January titled "The Metaverse is a Scam." I didn't put it out because I was worried about the backlash. I knew people were going to be so mad. I wish now I put it out because it died off so much now, and it would have looked very intelligent on my end. But yeah, so what's going to happen is, it's going to die out. Things are going to go down 80-90% over the next year or two. And then there's going to be this new utilization. After most people forget about it, And they've totally written it off. They're saying, screw all that stuff, meme stocks, NFTs. I hate that. I lost 80, 90%. That's when you find the gems. That's when you find like the Amazons, the Netflixes in 2003. That's when you find the true gems and the great projects. And there are going to be some NFTs that probably will be great buys a year from now or 2 years from now that I might end up scooping up, but that new utilization, because we get ahead of ourselves with any technology. It's the same thing as a dot-com bubble. We got ahead of ourselves. We had these great ideas, but we just ran too far ahead, and we didn't realize, hey, at the end of the day, we have to focus on cash flow. We have to focus on, we can't just go and burn billions of dollars, and so yeah.
You said if you weren't on YouTube or if you weren't starting businesses like you do now, you'd be an accountant.
I do like numbers like that. I had an argument with some of my friends last night for over an hour just talking about taxes. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just so fun because I think my brain is, I really like numbers, but I don't think I'm smart enough to be a physicist or, doing some really like heavy calculus. So my brain's perfect for accounting. It's that nice like mid-level of still a lot of numbers, but it's not too theoretical, too crazy.
Yeah. So one of the books I saw you read was like 92 Ways to Talk to People, something like that, talk to strangers.
Yeah.
And you said that really helped you early on because you're less extroverted and less able to communicate with others. But it's so funny because you never know that you were more introverted from talking to you. Yeah. So like, how'd that go?
Introverts have to teach themselves how to interact with people. And so, yeah, that was actually, now that you say it, that was one of the most impactful books in my life. Yeah. And I read that, I think in high school, probably. And I learned some things that were just such great nuggets of eye contact, for example. I was so bad with eye contact before that. And then I read the book and suddenly I just have to make eye contact.
Yeah.
Simple things like that extroverts kind of just take for granted and just like, they have no problem with it. But introverts, you have to teach yourself. So there was no shame in reading that book. I think it was really terrific.
Yeah. And have you, like, I also noticed you said something where, speaking of strangers, when you're really excited or in a great mood, you just like go up to people, high five them, just like give them good energy. I thought that was such a beautiful practice.
Yeah, it was really tough to start doing that.
Really?
Because introvert, but it was one of my things of forcing myself to just like the more that you practice on interacting with strangers, the easier it gets, right? I don't do that much though. That was
that was a phase.
That was a phase. That was a phase. But still, I've gotten better just from doing that, from that phase. Where now, if I'm in a coffee shop or something and I like someone's shirt or something, hey, that's a really cool shirt, or something like that. Compliment people, makes their day.
Just spreading good energy.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways you just spread good energy?
I like to help people as much as possible without asking for anything. And I enjoy it, like if my friends have a business and they're trying to scale it, or, my friends have a problem, whatever it is, I just enjoy helping people. It's fun.
Yeah. Any examples come to mind?
Yeah, I'll just use like some of my family. Well, actually, I shouldn't get into the details, but if any of my family members have problems, I'll spend all day just trying to solve the problems. I love solving problems. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the start of the YouTube journey,
Sure.
where you bought $500 of Amazon gift cards and you then used that to purchase a camera, your first camera, I believe.
Yeah. So wow, this is funny that you know this because I forgot about that. I bought $500 in Amazon gift cards, and then I had a Discover credit card that I think had a $500 limit. I think, yeah.
Yes.
And so that's why I had to buy the Amazon gift cards so I could get it because the camera was $1,000.
Wow.
So I had to combine the gift cards with the credit card, maxed out the card. And that's when I said, hey, look, like I need to take this seriously because $1,000 when I was 18, that was a lot of money, because I spent it all in tuition, right? So I said, I have to at least make this money back on YouTube. So that was the first goal there. And so there's different ways of hitting goals, right? You have like the really positive ones of like positive reinforcement, and then you have the negative ones where there's and I've done this with my brother a lot, where it's, hey, we better hit this goal or else this is going to happen.
What'd you do?
With my brother, we set a goal one year. It was we have to hit a certain goal or else we have to donate a certain amount of money to a political candidate that we didn't like. And it was like the person we hated the most. And so it was so we made sure we hit that goal so we didn't have to write that big check.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great way to help spur yourself to action and move yourself to action. With that camera, like what exactly paid for the camera? Was it just AdSense revenue?
Yeah, so back when I started on YouTube, because it was my New Year's resolution 2017 to start the channel, and you could monetize from day one. So on the first day, I think I made 7 cents or something. It was from watching my own videos, but
On 30 different computers.
yeah. So I was making money just on all the different computers. Yeah, now you have to have 1,000 subscribers and a certain amount of watch time. The first $1,000 though came from ad revenue and affiliates, Amazon affiliates. I don't remember when I got to the $1,000 mark from YouTube. I would say it was within the first year. It was probably after like 6 months maybe. But I don't know the exact numbers. But it took a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And like after that, what were the goals you set and how did you go about setting goals for the next 10,000 subscribers, or how did you think about goals?
Yeah. So I read a Grant Cardone book back in the day, right? I think it was the
10X
10X book. Yeah. I had mixed views on him now, but that book was helpful when I got started. And I realized, hey, if you set a goal to hit 100,000 subscribers, you might end up getting 30,000. But if you set a goal to get 1 million subscribers, you might get 300,000. And so you still fall short of that goal, but shoot really high is what I did. So I set unrealistic goals for my YouTube channel. I don't remember the exact goals that I set for the first year, but at the end of the year I had 5,000 subscribers, and I think I probably set it like 100,000 is what I wanted. So big difference there. But if I set that goal at 10,000, I'd probably have 500.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Now you have 1 million plus subscribers, 1.25, I think to be exact. And a lot of people might look at that and say, oh man, he's got everything made. He doesn't have any problems in his life. Everything is going well for him. Is that true? Is that not true?
I would say for me, it's pretty true. But there's a lot of people who have tons of problems, you know. Everybody has some problems that they don't talk about publicly. But no, for me, it's pretty true.
What are the biggest problems right now in your own life?
I don't want to invalidate my problems, but they're not extremely bad problems. It's more of just like overworking myself, stress from just bringing on too much, and also recently, just too much, like too many people that I have to talk to, right? I mean, like 400 or 500 unread messages that I feel bad because you can't keep up with it, and then it's like I end up ignoring people, but I don't mean to. So then I have to bring on employees or something to manage it. So that's the biggest problem. It's not a serious crazy problem, but it's one that does stress me out a bit.
Well, it makes me even more grateful to talk to you today. But I mean, like with so much coming at you and being an introvert, does that overwhelm you?
It definitely can, but that's why if you go and read the 4-Hour Work Week, that's like one of the things he says, hey, you know what, just check your email once a week, twice a week. So that's what I do for email. I don't check it that much, and I just block it out, and I'm getting better at it, of just getting used to not responding to companies or to people. And part of me feels bad, but the other part realizes I kind of have to let go.
How did you come to that realization?
Just forced it, like it was the same with YouTube comments. When you start on YouTube, your first 10,000 subscribers, you read every single comment, and then you get to 100,000 or 200,000 and you can't keep up. You have to keep refreshing and keep going through, and you can't respond to them. And that stressed me out too back in like 2018. And then eventually I just realized, hey, I got to get over this. I'm not gonna be able to see everything that's said about me online.
Yeah. Who's somebody you think is living life well from your perspective, and somebody older, maybe, it could be younger, who you're like, wow, that person's doing life the right way?
I would say Jake Tran, actually. We were just talking about him. So he's a fellow YouTuber, really great channel. I think he's living life the right way because he has his business set up with his YouTube channel. He's putting out 3 documentary style videos every week. I mean, they are top tier videos, and he travels the world. He goes to festivals. He spends a lot of time hanging out and meeting with friends because he fully automated his business. So he kind of has just like a great setup. I like to think that I'm somewhat like, almost in the same position, but not quite. But yeah, definitely look up to him.
I mean, it seems to be you're living that similar life, maybe not 3 a week, 3 videos a week,
Yeah.
but you're going on the mountains and you're taking the drone out there, and it seems like really centered.
Yeah, yeah, I try to, and I try not to focus too much on business. I guess I love doing it. I love talking about it, but I'm not going to force myself to work 100 hours a week. Like if I need to take a break, I will, and if that means I make less money this month, then that's okay.
Yeah. How do you get to that place? Because there's a lot of people overworking. There's a lot of people believing they need more to satisfy some piece of themselves that isn't whole.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of so this is sort of a theory sometimes that I have, which maybe it's not true for everyone, but I think for some people I have this theory that they work so much because maybe sometimes they're not happy, and so they're trying to either get away from themselves. And I have friends who do this with just socializing, for example. They never want to be alone because they don't want to face themselves.
Yeah.
Right. But people do that with work as well. They don't want to face themselves. They don't want to be in their own head. So they just work 24/7. Not everyone, some people just love working. I do work, quite a bit too. But that's a bit of a theory I've been developing, but I haven't fully hashed it out yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that the more comfortable you are spending time alone,
Yeah.
the better your life is, and the more you're able to present the true version of yourself in any given moment.
Yeah, totally.
So like, what tips do you have for somebody to spend more time alone, or how to navigate to that place where they're more comfortable spending time alone?
That is really tough because I think part of it is just the way my brain was wired and being an introvert and liking being alone, and then kind of having to be alone a lot because I didn't know how to interact with people. That's when I don't know. I really don't. And I have friends who have this problem where they always need to be doing something because they don't want to be with themselves. And I haven't been able to figure out what to tell them either, so yeah.
One thing that comes to mind is going to a therapist, because with a therapist, you are going internally, but you're getting the opportunity to talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
So
yeah, therapists are always good.
So what else do we got here? We got you had a Steve Jobs quote. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. That was on your YouTube page for some time, I think.
Yeah.
It's not on your YouTube page anymore.
No.
But why was that a quote that stuck out to you?
I really looked up to Steve Jobs. He had some bad parts about him as well, but I just liked his big vision on the world. And he had another quote. It was like, something about putting a dent in the universe, right? And just the way his brain worked was really fascinating. And I really wish he was still alive so that maybe one day I can meet him, but unfortunately not.
It's interesting because admiring someone like Steve Jobs goes against the philosophy of like taking life off and to. Do you see the two connecting? I mean, Steve Jobs was a big practitioner of meditation.
Well, that's one of my biggest battles is I want to be two different people. I want to be the person who's just living in the woods, but I also like to think big and dream big. And so doing both of those is difficult because they are completely counterintuitive to each other. Like they're two completely different things. So I came to the conclusion that I can kind of do both, and I might not be changing the world to the extent that somebody like Steve did or like Elon or, some other people, but I can still do quite a bit while still enjoying my life. Yeah.
How old are you?
23.
23 years old, thinking like
How old
this.
are you?
26.
Okay.
No, but it's just funny because it's like, got over 1 million subscribers. You've built a business for yourself. You're able to live financially free anywhere you want. And it's like, where are you going to be at 28? Where are you going to be at 38? It's really cool to see because from my perspective, it almost feels like you're playing with house money. Do you feel like that?
What do you mean?
Like you've achieved so much at such a young age that it's almost like anything else is extra. Anything else is amazing on top of it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that. I actually have said that to some of my friends, and I feel like I've just basically turned myself into a trust fund kid because I'm 23 now, and it's so there's that part too where you can definitely get a little bit lost where you're looking around and like, okay, well, what's next? I achieved the freedom part. That was my biggest goal in life.
Yeah.
And so then I did have a phase probably in 2020 where I was a bit lost. I get lost sometimes, right? And yeah, I was a bit lost on that, and had to do a lot of thinking, and just kind of took some time to really figure it out. But yeah,
What does that look like? You getting lost and then finding yourself again? Like what?
that's where a lot of the in the mountains comes in hand. Just going up into the Rockies in Colorado and just sitting on a mountain. I just yeah, and it's not even a lot of. Sometimes it's not even a lot of active thinking. It's just sitting and doing nothing, and then eventually just yeah.
And then what comes out? Like some insight, some discovery. Can you
Yeah,
take us to one?
I would say just overall being content after it and saying, it doesn't matter as much, and it's okay. And I don't have to have a crazy goal necessarily. I'm kind of going back and forth on my points here, but it's yeah.
I think that it is representative of a lot of people is, oh, I want to achieve this massive thing. Oh, I don't need to. It's all good. Oh, I want to. And just being content with both. And it could be both at different points.
And I think I don't want to sound cocky, but I think I will get there. I think I will achieve, most of them. And that's why I said, like, I'm not in a rush to be a billionaire or something. I think that a lot of that's just going to happen over time, over the next 50 or 60 years.
So is that on the agenda, becoming a billionaire?
It's not on the agenda. I think it's this sounds really cocky, but I think it's just going to happen eventually, especially with inflation too. But I think it'll just happen eventually, just over time, over decades.
Yeah. You are very humble, it does appear, from looking at you and your journey on the outside, and then you've achieved a lot. So does that make you confident? Does that make you cocky? Like how do you perceive that internally, your own success?
No, I really try to stay as grounded as possible, because in the broad scheme of things, I don't think I'm very successful. So yeah, I don't have any problems with I never put myself above others. But you do need a certain level of confidence to know that you're capable of doing things. Yeah, so some type of balance, keeping yourself in check, but also having a certain level of confidence in yourself. And there's kind of like a nice, there's like this weird like spot, like you want to hit it right in the middle where you're confident but not cocky. And because if you're cocky and full of yourself, nobody likes you, and you end up, it's just I wouldn't like myself. But if you have no confidence, you're not going to start a business. You're not going to just take a leap and jump for something. So
well, you had the confidence early on to know that you were trying to drop out of college before you even started. And your parents, what was that conversation like when you started college, or maybe even after? Like, guys, like I'm not doing this anymore.
It was a little tough, but it wasn't terrible, because my parents really took like a very laissez-faire like approach on raising us, which I think was great. I really appreciated it. But it was it was like, hey, it's your life. We want you to go to college. If you want to go to college, you have to pay for it. So I was like, okay, well, all right, fine. But yeah, they were upset definitely when I dropped out of college, but just kind of had to show them that it was going to work, and it took some time, definitely. Like, they were worried, because parents want the best, like the safest route for their child, right? But they didn't have that over me of, hey, we're paying for your school, so you have to stay in school. Like, for a lot of kids, they have that, and there's that bigger pressure on them. So for me, it wasn't too bad. And now my parents trust me with anything. It's great.
Yeah, and then how does it impact your relationship with friends, who you go from, less than 1,000 subscribers to now you've got over 1 million? Do people treat you differently?
I don't think so. I would say close friends don't. Maybe extended friends from high school or something start like reaching out to you or something. That does happen. But no, I mean, people just, you view them exactly how you viewed them to begin with, if you knew them before any of their, YouTube or anything else like that. So I wouldn't say it's any different. Yeah. Now most of my friends are actually other business owners and other YouTubers, because I think there's a lot more to relate with. But from different chapters of life, I think everybody has certain friends that you keep, right? Because you know that they're really great, genuine people. So I have a couple people from high school. I have a handful of my really close friends from college. And so there's different chapters of life. And then you pick the best ones and say, I want to keep these people in my life. You actively make sure that you're keeping in contact with them, visiting them. So, yeah.
What's the biggest commonality between your YouTuber friends who have massive audiences?
The biggest commonality between all of us?
Yeah.
It's actually most of them are finance YouTubers. So we can talk about YouTube, and then we can also talk about money and stocks and everything. So it's everything that I love talking about. It's just yeah.
But is there specific traits that they have that other people don't?
Yeah, actually, a lot of them are introverts. Almost all of them are introverts, which is funny. People don't think that, but most YouTubers that I meet are introverts.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because, I mean, it's like, I think a lot of extroverts are out, socializing and talking to people, doing stuff. And then introverts are sitting in their room at 1 a.m. and they're like, what should I do? I don't have anything to do. I don't have any friends. So let me just turn on the camera and talk to this camera in my room. That was my experience. That was the experience from a lot of people that I've talked to as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched a video of you. It was, the caption said something like, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and couldn't go to sleep and I needed to film this.
Yeah.
Like, take us through that experience of just knowing you need to film something or record something. Like, what is that like?
That's I remember that video. I think the title was a little bit clickbait. It's like 3 habits that make you poor or something.
Yeah.
But it was a really passionate video. I don't script them. It was just one that I just had that I had to get out. And that happens too with ideas. I'm sure you do that as well. Where you're just sitting somewhere and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I need to write this down. I can't forget this. And it's an idea, business idea, video idea, podcast guest. Like there's something that pops up. And when you're in that zone, I think it's great to just get it out and do it before you get out of that zone.
Is there anything you do to force that zone, to make that zone happen?
I try, but it's hard. I mean, isolating definitely. But it's really hard to make that zone happen. Yeah. Certain places though, it's helpful. Yeah.
Certain places like you go to and it triggers flow state or thoughts.
Yeah. So like if I go to my brother's house, because he's just basically like me, just my twin almost. He's not my twin, but he's like it. I go to his house and he helps me brainstorm, and I can really get in the zone there.
How does a brainstorm session go between you and your brother? Like you throw out an idea, he does. Like
there's a lot of whiteboards involved and pacing around and yelling and yeah.
Like what?
It's
like
really
what is
fun.
it like?
I mean, it could be business ideas. It could be investments, and we're going back and forth. And we're just like we're up in his attic and we're pacing around and we're calling people up, and it's so fun. It's one of my favorite things.
How do you decide what to invest in these days?
It's so my style of investing is I'm not a day trader. I don't look at a lot of technicals, but I'm also not necessarily the Warren Buffett style, buy something and sit on it for 20 years. My focus is really finding value that I can make money in like a 1 week to a 6 month span, maybe a 12-month span. So kind of like swing trading there and like going for something that I can flip in a matter of a couple of months.
Is there anything in particular from the last maybe 3 years that you could share of like, wow, this was really good, or this didn't turn out as well as I thought it would?
Sure, I'll share a good one and a bad one.
That'll be great.
So good one was I de-risked a lot. I sold off most of my risk assets in December and early January of this year. So most of my crypto I sold off. Most of my risk assets in general. And the fun thing is I was tweeting about this. So I love Twitter. You can document everything as you're doing it. And then I went really deep into energy. First week of January. Yeah, like oil. And so that was, if I was holding crypto today, I'd be down 50%, but instead I'm up 50%. So I have 3 times more money today than what I would have had if I held the crypto. So it was one of my best investments. Bad ones, I've made tons of bad ones. I had Luna, UST, lost a ton on that. That was just like last week. That was rough. The meme stock stuff, I made a lot in the beginning, lost a lot as well. So, you win some, you lose some.
What do you see in the case of the energy and the crypto at that time?
So it was pretty obvious that we were at the top of the bubble in November, December, when the billionaires were selling off so much of their stocks. And then also, rates were going up, and it was weird. The markets weren't reacting to it, but inflation was jumping. So the CPI data kept coming out. It's going higher and higher and higher, but the markets were still, ignoring it. And it's like, how is this possible? I also once a month listen to Peter Schiff's podcast. And so when I listen to him, I get riled up and I'm like, oh my God, I need to just de-risk. So that's probably what prompted it. And I said, wow, I need to get out of this. I need to get an inflation hedge. And so that's when I sold off a lot of the crypto. Because I mean, when rates go up and when we're pulling money out of the system, there's no way that these risk assets can keep going up. I mean, there's just no way. Like as long as money's tightening, and it's not going to get loose anytime soon. So, yeah, and energy was just a inflation hedge. So yeah.
You mentioned Peter Schiff. Are there any other podcasts or audio or YouTube materials that you listen to improve investing?
Improve investing. Pomp has some good stuff. He's a big Bitcoin guy, but I do like to listen to him from time to time to get his perspective on crypto. And besides that, actually, most of the podcasts I listen to are not really investing related. It's more like Lex Friedman. That's my favorite podcast.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You actually remind me a lot of Lex Friedman, the way you think in a really analytical way.
That's a great compliment. Thanks. Because yeah, I really look up to him. But yeah, I don't listen to too many other investing podcasts. A lot of my information just comes from stock screeners and just reading like annual reports, quarterly reports on companies.
Yeah, what I love so much about your content is it seems like you've taken an approach of investing, finance, and then slowly but surely broaden yourself out to more meditation and books and nature and like this is Nate O'Brien as Nate O'Brien. So I really appreciate that part of you. How much of that was intentional versus not?
It was very intentional because a big problem that people face as influencers is that they get pigeonholed into something, right? And it happened to me in 2019. I was a finance YouTuber. Like I couldn't put out anything besides that, And if I was putting out a video that was about, anything besides the stock market, it would get 15% of the views as what it would normally get if it was about investing. So it was hard to break into it, but I made a minimalist apartment tour. And all it takes is one video to just hit a vein in the algorithm, and it'll totally open up a whole new demographic and a whole new viewer base. So once that opened up with the minimalist apartment tour, I was able to gave me a lot of like malleability there of just like being able to move around and make different productivity videos and book videos. But that was definitely my goal. I was stressed out because I was in one spot and I was kind of in a corner, and I had to make finance content. So I was really relieved to open it up so I can kind of make a broad range of topics now.
Yeah. And minimalism in particular, what got you into minimalism?
So I've just always not liked having a lot of stuff. I remember when I went to college, I've told this story a couple of times, but when I went to college, I was driving out to Penn State, and my car, so all the dials went off as I was driving. So this isn't good. So I pulled over. I thought my car died. Started steaming. Then the steam turned very dark. Then it turned black, and then flames shot up. The whole thing went up in flames. But all my stuff was in the car. Like it was I was driving to college, first day, Penn State. So then the whole summer semester, I ended up having nothing. Like I was just wearing jeans and a t-shirt in my college dorm. And that's when I realized, hey, I don't need that much stuff. I don't need all this. So that was kind of like the point where I became a minimalist. I was kind of by force, but it's funny.
Yeah, I think that goes to accepting what happens. So often we spend time in our head fighting or arguing with reality. Oh, why'd this happen to me? It shouldn't happen to me. I don't deserve this. But instead you kind of took it and was like, listen, that's what the world gave me at this moment, so let me just embrace it. Yeah,
and I realized it was actually better. I had less stress, obviously cost less money too, but I realized I didn't need so many of these things. You don't need tons of appliances and little trinkets, and I just like to keep it really simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, it comes through in your mindset and in the way you speak. It's simple, and it seems like the clutter has been removed. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I've said this on my channel as well. Like if my room is cluttered, if my apartment is cluttered, my brain also feels cluttered.
Yeah.
So, and instead of having to declutter and organize stuff, it's better to just minimize.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful place to come to a close. I'm really grateful for you coming here today. I'm really grateful for your time, your energy, your presence. It really comes through. So thank you for being here. Where can we send people to connect with you further?
I think probably Instagram is probably the best bet, so just Nate O'Brien with one extra N on the end there. Can always shoot me an email too. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is probably my favorite podcast I've been on.
Oh,
so This is
man.
really great.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Cool.